Hey everybody, the goal of this third video on oxyacetylene is just to go over some more of the details about the safety of this. We had two videos so far. One was the 8-step video of how to start the setup and how to get things going with it safely. The second one was 8 steps on how to shut the torch system down, shut the tanks off, bleed them out, etc. Okay. This third video is very straightforward in that we're talking about some of the details of this. So the first detail I want to talk about, you guys, is the pressure of the acetylene. Mr. Kane taught you this last year. Unquestionably, every welding teacher teaches this, but acetylene gas, when it's pressurized at 15 pounds or higher, it gets very unstable. We really don't ever use it that high, so it's usually never a problem. But just know that at 15 pounds, the gas becomes very unstable, so you would never want to crank this regulator adjusting screw in until that needle is reading 15 or higher. The highest we ever use acetylene in this shop, in our program at Capital, is 10 pounds, which, you know, some people like to cut at 40 pounds of oxygen, 10 acetylene. I don't ever go that high. I'm usually running my gas for the oxy-fuel setup when I'm torch cutting 37 and 5, 37 and 6, 37 and 7 maybe, but usually you're never in that dangerous range to start with. So be careful with that. Watch the gauge. I'm going to grab the camera right now and we're going to move into this so I can just show you what I'm talking about. And what I'm referring to is that. Do not have that gauge getting up above 10. There's just no reason to in our facility with what we do. All right, I'm going to set this back down. Okay, so very specifically, you guys, question 4 on this test says acetylene gas must never be used at high pressure because it becomes unstable. What is the safe PSI limit for this gas? 15 pounds, okay? Number 4, what method will be used to check for leaks on the tank? So here's the scoop. You folks in welding 2 and welding 3, you're going to be changing the gas tanks yourself. If one runs empty, you get a new one and we replace it. When you replace that tank, everybody, we always do what we call a soak test to check for leaks of the gas. A leaking oxygen tank would cost us money, but it wouldn't be a safety hazard. A leaking acetylene tank is definitely a safety hazard and would cost money. We don't need a flammable gas leaking out into the shop, okay? So here's what we do. I have taken a plastic cup, as you can see, filled it with water, and then some soap out of the soap dispenser by the sink. It's that simple. Take a brush, and what I'm going to do is brush this all over the fittings of the tank. So I'm going to do an example with the acetylene, okay? So after you put this all together, you would open the tank, and I'm going to crank this open about half a turn, something like that, okay? And there's drippy soap suds all over that. And if we look at this, again, I'm going to grab the camera. There's no bubbles going on, okay? Now I'm going to grab my wrench and I'm going to purposely loosen that and let you see what it would look like if it were leaking. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen this up here. Remember, acetylene's going to have left-handed threads on it. Okay, not only is it leaking through with the bubbles, I can clearly hear it. I'm going to put some more soap on there, then I'm going to grab a camera. And we're going to zoom in on it. So let me show you what's going on here. Okay, grabbing the camera. Going to come right in here. You can hear it, but you can also see these bubbles that are getting created. Sorry for that. Okay, you can see it. It's clearly leaking. So you tighten it up until the leak stops. Okay, let me set that back down. I'm going to do that. Remember, it's a left-handed thread. Okay, I can no longer smell it. Definitely acetylene gas. is gonna have a smell. And then I will do my final soap test by putting some more soap on there. Okay, we're good. Nothing's bubbling. So that's your soap test. All right, next thing. It says, number 5, what is the only safe tool to use for striking the torch and lighting? Folks, it's a striker. We don't use anything else, plain and simple. Okay, I'm going to flip the page. Number 6, why is it so important to only have the fuel tank turned on, open, a half a turn, 1 turn, 1.5 turns at the most? I'm talking about the acetylene. It's so that we can simply turn it off quickly. So basically, we open that a half a turn, quarter of a turn, 1 turn, 1.5 turns at the most. Sometimes these regulators require that the valve be opened a little more as compared to another one. So there's not like a hard set fast rule on that, but really I've never seen one that takes more than 1.5 turns of opening to get full gas flow. So the reason we only want it that small amount of turning to open is, again, so it can be shut off quickly. Number 7, what tank will always be turned off in case of emergency? We always turn the fuel off, which would be acetylene. Deal with that first. Okay. Number 8 is a clothing question. It says the only proper footwear for welding is leather boots, period. So it's leather boots is the answer. Number 9, what gas regulator pressures will you use for welding and what pressures will you use for cutting? In welding, you guys, a lot of people will use 10 and 5. That's a good, average rating, I would say. But your answer for the torch cutting, I want you to put 37 oxygen, 5 acetylene. Okay? Number 10, it says explain what the regulator does in the system. You guys, this oxygen regulator, acetylene regulator, what they're doing is taking gas that is under massive amounts of pressure in these bottles, and they're reducing it down into something much smaller that we can actually use. It's just too much pressure if you used it directly out of the bottle. Okay? 11, why would you never grease fittings on the oxy-fuel setup? You guys, these are never designed for you to put WD-40 or grease on these brass fittings. The grease will actually explode when it comes into contact with pure oxygen. We don't ever lube these up with any kind of lubricant. We just put them together and the brass will crush the seal and you're good. Okay? All right, next one. Number 12, why must you never use sunglasses when OA cutting or plasma cutting or welding? You guys, sunglasses simply will not protect your eyes enough. You need a heavier shade lens that will block out the flame so it doesn't damage your eyes. So I don't want to see anybody in here being stupid and wearing a pair of sunglasses. Okay, 13, what is the only proper footwear to be worn when cutting? Again, it's leather boots, you guys. Tennis shoes are not going to cut it. You got to have leather boots. You're going to be doing a ton of cutting in this class. You're going to be blowing sparks all over your feet. You need leather boots, plain and simple. No other option. 14, why must you never fire the plasma torch into the air to check to see what's going on? You guys, there's no reason to take the hand plasma torch, which you've all used with Mr. Kane, and pop that trigger. That actually causes the flame to burn back into it. So I just threw this question in. Do not pull the trigger on the hand plasma torch unless you're right against the metal. And number 15, what must be worn for proper eye protection when torch cutting? Obviously, we're going to wear the cutting glasses or cutting goggles. So that is a review. Those are the 15 questions that will be on your test, and you should be set. Please study them before taking the test.